a very, very good FA Cup final. And Haji! What a magnificent goal!
Good evening and welcome to All Things Sky Blue playoff match preview. Yes, that's right. You heard me right. Playoff match preview. Thank you to everyone that's joining on the different platforms, X, Facebook, YouTube. If you like what you hear and like what you see, please go and like and subscribe. Shortly, I'll be joined by my Coventry City guests, Glenn and Mark from the All Things Sky Blue podcast. Mark, as you know, is normally my co-host, but we are joined by Glenn as well. Before I bring them in, just remember where you can find us. We are available on X or Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. We're on Spotify, Amazon Prime. So please go and rate us 5 stars if you listen to us. And like I said just a minute ago, please go and like and subscribe if you watch us on YouTube. You can send in your questions for us. We will be joined about 8 o'clock from Jonny from Roker Report, getting the Sunderland side of the playoffs. So we are partnered with the Anecdote Sports Bar and the Sky Blue Tavern, and we are also sponsored by Wright Steel Fabrications. His logo's in the corner. He can do your steel fabrication work up and down the country, but mainly the Coventry and Warwickshire area. We're also in association with Sky Blue, Coventry Ladies as well. Not Sky Blue Ladies, Coventry Ladies. First one coming, Graham Cottrell. Hi, Stuart. Thank you very much, Graham. Much appreciated. If anybody else wants to give us your questions, feel free to do so. So let me bring in my guests. First of all, Mark Smith. Good evening, Mark. You okay?
Good evening, Stuart. Yeah, you okay?
Yep, not too bad. Thank you. Not too bad. And Glenn. Good evening, Glenn.
Good evening, boys. How are we?
Yeah, right.
Very well.
Right, let's get to it. So, Mark, first of all, can you believe that we're in the playoffs? We actually made it. Can you believe it?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we would. I wouldn't have believed it if you'd have cast your mind back to November when Mark Robins got sacked and everyone was on Doug King's back and and all that. But yeah, Frank Lampard, what a job he's done! Fantastic job. There's a really fantastic fact to the club. The morale's really good. People enjoying playing the football. We're enjoying watching the players play. There's a good vibe around supporters. The atmosphere the last game of Middlesbrough is probably the best I've been to at the CBS Arena. It was absolutely buzzing. It's just a real good feel-good facts about this club at the moment, and I don't think I think the pressure's slightly off us in terms of the playoffs. I think it'd be fantastic if we can achieve promotion. I think, let's be honest, I'd say Sheffield United are probably the favourites out of the 4 sides. But I think all you can ask for, really, from our point of view, is getting to the 5th spot, which we've achieved. We've got Sunderland in 2 games, which is probably, on paper, the easier fixture than Sheffield United. So, all good. I'm looking forward to the playoffs. A bit nervous, if I have to be honest, but there's excitement as well there. And I think we're playing well, and hopefully we can get the right result in the 2-legged playoff match against Sunderland.
Yeah, Glenn, obviously, if we go back to, the start of the season when Mark Robins was still in charge, there just seemed a bit of a lack of cohesion with the team, wasn't there? And when Lampard came in, there was a bit of uplift, if you like, with a new manager, but he's definitely galvanised, and the players look, when you see the unseen footage, the players definitely look galvanised and together, don't they?
Yeah, I don't think you can knock the team spirit we had in that team. I think we maybe just lost our way and lost our direction, and a fresh voice from Frank Lampard, Chris Jones and Joe Edwards has done wonders for us. And yeah, I always felt when we had that run, I think it was 9 wins in 10 or something stupid like that. I felt we got ourselves back into it. But then I did worry that we're probably just going to make hard work of it. I mean, I remember speaking to, what was it? I think I spoke to a Portsmouth fan around the time of the Portsmouth game where we lost 4-1. And I said I thought we'd blown the playoffs and we had no chance of it. And then look at where we are now, and we're 3 games away from the Premier League, which is just ridiculous. And yeah, it's anyone's playoffs. I think it's the most wide open playoffs that it's been in a long time, because you can make arguments for and against every single side in the playoffs, which is really, really exciting.
Yeah, I think this is probably, obviously we've got 106 people watching, so thank you very much to them. If you have got questions, please send them in and we'll get to them questions, or even shout outs or anything that you want us to do. Just get writing them questions down. So, so Mark, it's the tightest that I've known a playoff to be. There's always a front runner that's there, and I know we can say that Sheffield United have finished 3rd and they're probably the front runners, but Bristol City have beaten them. We've beaten Sunderland. We've drew against Bristol City, so it's still very close and up in the air, and any given day, any of us can beat each other, can't we?
Yeah, exactly. It's just about how we perform on the day, and doing what we're doing at the moment. Certainly, the home form at the moment is really good, and obviously we've got good memories of our last game against Sunderland. We won 3-0. We were absolutely superb that game. We played them off the park. We really dominated that game. I expect it to be a much difficult game on Friday. I think Sunderland will be harder to break down. I think tactically they'll probably be more defensive and look to hit some counter attack. Is how I expect them to line up. But I think the signs from our side are really good. Jack Rodoni, for me, has been absolutely incredible. He's been at the forefront of everything good about the team this season, with the amount of assists he's had and amount of goals as well. I think Ben Wilson was brilliant as well on Saturday's game. I think that really lifted the crowd. The crowd was singing his name, as everyone knows, and it was a real good feel-good factor about the place. So I think there's a lot of promising signs, and also obviously Bobby Thomas must have as well in that defence was a massive plus, as well as Milan and Ibak. So we're getting our players fit. I don't know what the situation is with Ephraim Mason-Clark. I hope maybe he might feature on the bench. Glenn might know more than me on that one, but things are looking a little bit better, but we can't underestimate Sunderland. They're a good side, and I know they're in poor form, but you can't. I mean, the league season's over now. It's down to a straight sort of cup knockout 2-legged match now, and we've got to be up for it. But I feel this is a game where we need to get some kind of lead going into the second leg at Sunderland, because it will be difficult up there. But having said that, we drew against Middlesbrough 2 years back and we managed to win 1-0. So it's not all doom and gloom, but it would be nice if we can get some kind of league going to the second leg.
Yeah, and we were the underdogs against Middlesbrough, 2 seasons ago, weren't we? Nobody was expecting us to do what we did at that point either. So hopefully we continue on. Glenn, Mark mentioned Ben Wilson. Now, was that a surprise for you, or was you hoping that would happen? And, we've got to say as well that he had an absolute, Mark said it, he had an absolute blinding of a game, considering that he's been out for so long. And, he made some absolutely brilliant saves, and his positioning when he come out was really good as well, wasn't it?
Yeah. Was I surprised he started? Yes and no. I did think that it had gone past the point of no return with Collins. But if there's a player who could come in to the playoff, basically a playoff decider for Cov, and perform, and has the confidence, the self-belief to do it, it's Ben Wilson. There ain't many other people you'd want in that situation. And full credit to him. He's got that experience of obviously promotions with us in the past. So, yeah, I thought he did a real good job I thought the save from Azaz, the first one where he's tipped it onto the post, is even better when you watch it from behind the goal because Thomas kind of blocks his view, and it's a cracking save. But just his all-round game was really good. By that first minute where the ball bobbled up when he come out to clear it, didn't it? And we all just got,
yeah.
After that, he was off as a rock, and yeah, he's really good. And that kind of alleviates the worry we've got for the 2 playoff games, where I think if we'd had Collins in goal for them, we'd have been waiting for the mistake to happen, and the atmosphere would have got jittery and nervous.
Yeah, I think you're right. Graham's just come up with a question. He said 2 years ago, we were not ready for the playoffs, in my opinion. Now it looks like we're more positive because we have a more talented squad. Would you agree with that, Mark?
I think probably got more depth, I would say, in the squad than we had 2 years ago. I think when you look back 2 years ago, that first 11 was a really good 11 and arguably a stronger 11 than what we have at the moment, particularly defensively. But the problem with that side was a couple of injuries here and there, and when we seem to be really struggling. I think this time around, attacking wise, we've got good options going forward. Still feel there's a couple of areas defensively we're a little bit short. I think if Milan gets injured, we've got a bit of a problem in that position. Bobby Thomas, I think, is probably our best defender. If he gets injured, are the players coming into the side any better, or probably not? Going by the previous couple of performances ago against Luton, I think we've got. So I'd say overall we've got good depth of quality going forward. Midfield is not too bad as well. I think Jamie Allen has performed pretty well this season when he has played for us. I just think defensively we're a little bit under, a little bit weak in a couple of areas, as I mentioned. But I think it's a decent squad. I think on our day we could beat anybody in this league, and I feel that if we play at our best, I'm sure we've got an excellent chance of winning this game in Sunderland, and hopefully beyond that and getting promoted to the Premier League.
Yeah, I think that's one thing that I will kind of applaud Lampard for as well, because he's navigated the injuries quite well for me, just because when we lost Sakamoto for a little bit, and we lost Mason Clark, the first one that he got injured for. He adapted, didn't he? He went to a back 5 and played with wing backs rather than the wide men, the 4-3-3. Blackburn comes to mind when we won there. Just how tactically adept he is, and I find, the way that he is navigating through these injuries with Mason Clark being out, it helps when you've got Haji Wright back. But I think that's, Graham's alluded to it there. We've got better players. We've got a better squad than we had 2 years ago. Glenn, Thomas Asante came on for a 20-minute cameo or half an hour cameo. And, he made that second goal, and he should have scored himself, shouldn't he?
Yeah, I think the thing is now we've got more match winners. I think in the playoff season, we were kind of the Gus Hamer and Victor Gyökeres show, really, most of the time. And we didn't have the strength in depth that we had. We had a half-fit Casey Palmer on the bench. We had we had Eccles. We had Sean Maguire, Wilson Esbrand. You know what I mean? You look at it now, we can bring Thomas Asante in, who's been a top scorer at West Brom, played in the playoffs. We could have the likes of Norman Bissett coming off the bench. We could have Mason Clark coming off the bench. The thing with us is, if you stop Haji Wright, we still got Sakamoto. You stop Rodoni, we still got Sims who could do something. And if you stop all of them, we've got Grimes who can put a quality ball in, and you've got the aerial threat of Kitchen and Thomas to nick us a goal. Or Milan will do a bit of magic. You mean that we're a lot harder to contain than I think we were the playoff season. And also, let's be fair, Vic was pretty much playing on painkillers that towards the end of that season, and Gus was also obviously went off injured in the final. So I think we've got a lot more depth. So I agree with what Graham said. I think we're more ready for the playoffs, and I think if we get to Wembley, I think the previous experience we've had the last 2 years, and also Lampard's big game experience, will be a massive factor in our favour.
Yeah, definitely. And obviously, I've put Graham's comment on there because I think he is a big factor. And that's Grimes. That's Matty Grimes. Mark has been sensational. He's had the odd game that, he hasn't played particularly well in. Well, he's had spells in games where he's missed, let the ball go through him. And, one of them, I think, was Burnley for the second goal that he lost, or the first goal, I think it was, at our place. But as a whole, Matty Grimes has been absolutely brilliant since he's come in, hasn't he?
He's been absolutely superb. Yeah, I was really, really excited when I heard that he was going to sign for us in the January transfer window. I think that's allowed the likes of Jack Rodoni to really flourish now, get goals and assists and that. And he also brings a lot of calmness to that midfield and breaking possession. Very rarely gives the ball away. Obviously, you've alluded to that game against Burnley where he was partly at fault for their second goal, but overall, 9.5 out of 10 signing. Really, really good player. I know the Swansea fans, shall I say, were very upset to see him go, and that's a good sign for us when other teams are upset to see their captain go. And he was a big player for them. So whenever we played Swansea and I saw Grimes with the team sheet, I was thinking, oh great, we're playing against him. He's fit. I didn't want him to be fit, and that bodes well. And yeah, his performances for us on the whole has been fantastic. So. He'll be a big player for us in the next hopefully 3 games, and yeah, I mean he's fitting in seamlessly as well, like a duck to water, and I think that's a credit to him as well. So yeah, really, really positive about his signing. I think he's, for me that was a top sign by Lampard, and they lost him. They got that one spot on.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you very much, Simon and Steve, for commenting in. Again, just throw your comments in and we'll try and get through them, and they're coming in through now, so that's good. Simon Wells said, Asante was superb. He's got a kick on now, and he can make himself a right hero. We can do it, he says. And Steve Billing says, and this is one of my bugbears, if you like, Haji needs to turn up. He's been a bit weak the past few weeks. Now, obviously, we know what Haji Wright did against Sunderland the last time that we played, and he scored the hat-trick against them. So, do you agree with that, Glenn? Do you think that he needs to turn up? Are you happy with his contribution so far, or do you want to see more from him?
I think I'm quite happy with what he's been doing. Given the injury, it's going to take time. I think Sunderland will be scared of him. I think it's 4 goals in 2 games against them. I think he's also got an assist against them as well. So I think they'll be worried about him. And he had you're right, he had that little bit of devil in him when he played him in the league game. So I think he'll be up for it again. And I think he'll cause them trouble in both games. And you're right, he's a big player. He normally performs in the big games for us. You look back, FA Cup semi-final, FA Cup quarter-final, Leeds last season at the CBS. This season against Sunderland, I think he'll home games he tends to turn up for us. Maybe the away games he doesn't do as much. He can get a bit isolated playing through the middle. But yeah, I think we'll see a big performance from him and Sims, and I think Thomas, Asante and Bissett will have roles to play.
Okay, nice. Ian, thank you very much. Ian Small, he said, evening all. Got a very positive feeling about Friday. Momentum and team spirit count for so much. I do agree with that. Peter Stevenson on YouTube, thank you very much. How's the confidence? Sunderland fans seem to be worried about, but that's on history. A few of our fans seem too confident. Yeah, I would agree with that. I think we're taking Sunderland, Mark, a little bit, not for granted. I think that would be the wrong word, really. But I think we're getting a bit too carried away because of what we did against them at our place. Glenn's gone. He did say that he might shoot off, so I'm not worried about that. We've lost connection because he did say he might shoot off. But yeah, do you think that we're too confident, or what? How are you feeling?
I think the most important question is, as long as the players are not too confident, then they've got the right attitudes to the game, then that matters. That's all I really care about as a fan. I think we're always going to get carried away a little bit as supporters because we're seeing the positive result performance against Middlesbrough. We know we've played Sunderland twice. We've taken 4 points off in the season, and that win early this season was a fantastic performance. So you're going to go into the game feeling confident. I don't think there's anything wrong being. I mean, it's kind of a difference between being confident and being arrogant. But I think for me, I can't really speak for myself. I'm confident if we turn up, we can get a good result, and I don't think there's anything wrong with saying that. On present form, if we play the way we're playing, we should beat Sunderland. That's a fact in my opinion. But it's a new game. You just don't know what Sunderland side are going to turn up. They haven't played well. I think they've lost 6 games. I think
five games on the bounce.
5 games on the bounce. So they don't go into that game with any confidence. And we've got to keep them down. That's the thing. We've got to keep that confidence down. We've got to be on the front foot. We're pressing like we did, pretty much like the performance we had in March. Get on the front foot, press them, don't let them sit on the ball, put pressure on them. I mean, my only thought about Haji Wright, your question earlier, is would it be plausible possibly of even starting Haji Wright as a lone striker? Bearing in mind he scored a hat-trick in the previous game, it just gives them something to think about, doesn't it, psychologically? Because they think, oh God, we've got to play Haji Wright again. Plus he scored at the Stadium of Light as well. Do you think that possibly something Lampard might be looking at?
Who would you play on the left though?
Well, I was thinking, mate, possibly a Patterson. I know Effel's not fit, but that's probably the only option I'd go for. I think he'll probably go Sims and right on the left. That's what I think he'll do. But just from a point of view of he's played against Sunderland a couple of times now. He's scored 4 goals, and that'll get. And some will think, who would I rather be marking? Ellis Sims or Haji Wright? And Haji Wright, for me, he's got the wood over him, so to speak. So that's what I'd be thinking psychologically. I'd give him something to think about. Yeah,
he has, but obviously when you do look at the stats, when Sims tends to start, we do tend to win the games as well. So I would look at that down there. Simon Wells said, didn't Haji play down the centre last time against Sunderland? I think, did he? I can't remember if he did or not.
Yes.
Did he?
Yeah,
who was on the left then?
I don't know if Efra Mason Clark was playing that game.
Was he back fit for a game, was he? He might have done actually, and then he didn't he go down injured? Didn't he stretch too much or something?
Yeah, I think he got subbed from memory.
Yeah, okay. Maybe he did. Okay. Peter's also said, my view is that we only need to 1 game to get through. I think home first is an advantage. I was talking to somebody about that, I think it was either yesterday or today, and I totally agree. I still think that we need a clean sheet, personally, or we need at least a 2-goal deficit in our favour, because I think at their place they will score. I think with their crowd and stuff, if we get an early goal at our place, that will keep them quiet. Because I think momentum is key. I think Ian mentioned it earlier, but it would be interesting. I did a little interview with Roker Report earlier on this week, and they've taken the past 5-6 games, I believe, as a pre-season. So when Jonny joins us a little bit in a minute, I will ask him the question if it's true that they've been using it as a pre-season friendlies. Apparently they've had warm weather training over in Portugal. Again, I'm not sure how true that is. It will be good to get his take on that as well. So if that's the case, I don't think that you can turn it on and off. I think that they're going to struggle to get that momentum. I think the first game is key, as Peter's mentioned, but I do think that we need a clean sheet. How do you feel, maybe knowing that they've got something more to give, and that they've been treating the last 4 or 5 games in the league as pre-season friendlies?
Well, we'll see what happens on Friday on that one, because they haven't been playing very well. But I think from our point of view, we just have to approach as any game of football. You've got to forget about what they're doing, contrary to what we can do. And when we play well at home, we can beat any team, in my opinion. We're a match for anyone when we're on it. So it's more about what we can do on the pitch. Yes, they've got good players, they've got options there. You know, Isidore, I think, was on the bench. I think the QPR game. Who's been really good for the season. He's scored a lot of goals. Mayenda's been a good player for them. Patrick Roberts. I think we didn't really see the best of Bellingham in that game as well. I thought he didn't really get stiff in that game. So yes, they got good players. We know that, but we've got good players as well. It's just about how we approach the game. And obviously, us supporters, 31,000 still out again, which is brilliant to see. We've got to do our bit as fans as well, get right behind the players and make it a really intimidating atmosphere on Sunderland. Don't make it easy for them.
Yeah, definitely. Sorry, Mark, go on.
I was just to say quickly that even if we're losing, we've got to keep right behind this team. We've got to support the players out there. It's a big game. And yeah, we've just got to do our job as fans.
Yeah, obviously, before Jonny has joined us backstage. Hello, Jonny. Just give us a wave. He's waving. Before I do get Jonny on, just go through some of the questions that we've had. So Graham said, what has Graham said? He said they are going to put 2-3 players on Haji, which will give space for Sims and Jack Rodoni. Sky Blue Sam, thank you very much, Sky Blue Sam. Sunderland have won 7 out of 10 playoff home legs. Also, he says Luke 09 has never been on a winning side versus Coventry in 13 games, and Bellingham has never played in a side beating Coventry yet either. So that's interesting. Peter said if they have to use the last few games as pre-season, I think they've done themselves harm. You surely want to win every game regardless. That's what I think. We'll get Johnny's take on that in a moment. Under average Cov fan said if we perform, we go through. Simple as that. We have more experience than Sunderland, and that would be the telling factor. Graham said having Thomas back in defence is massive. And Ben Watkin has said De Silva or Bidwell will get that reaction in a moment. And who's winning the other playoff tie, says Glenn at the Sky Blue Hub. I'm hoping Bristol City do, but I think Sheffield United will. So on that, let's bring Jonny in. Good evening, Jonny. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, evening, gents. Pleasure to be here.
Good. Before we get into it and before we get started, can you just let us know what you guys do and where we can find you?
Yeah, so I'm one of many lads who are all involved with Roker Report, which is, I was going to say the biggest Sunderland fan content platform, but, to save some rivalries, I'll just say we are one of the biggest. So you can find Roker Report at Roker Report on Twitter. Or at rokerreport.sbnation.com, which is where all of our articles come out. And there's also a recently released podcast feed on Spotify and Acast and all the, the other good places you can find your podcasts, called However the Podcast, where we do all sorts of content, written articles, podcasts, like I say, opinion pieces, news roundups. A lot. There's just a lot of us who are all obsessed with Sunderland, and we can't seem to do anything but spend our free time talking and writing about it. So yeah, that's kind of us in a nutshell.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Obviously, there are questions coming in, so there may be questions for you as well, Jonny. So when they do come up, I will put them to you as well. So I did a little article with Gav earlier on this week, and he mentioned about Lebris using these last few games as pre-season friendlies. We've done warm weather training, I believe, over in Portugal, I think he said.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that? Are you happy about that? I know QPR had a good time of it when they did it, apparently. Are you keen on that? Would you prefer not to have done that and treated every game? How do you feel?
Well, it's an interesting one. It's certainly been one that's divided opinion in the Sunderland fan base. I think that's fair to say. There's been a real kind of big divide between those who can understand and appreciate the reasons and those who fall very much into the camp of treat every game as seriously as you can and try and get that momentum. I mean, personally, for me, I think I can understand it because I just think back to our playoff campaign 2 seasons ago. Obviously, you beat Middlesbrough and got to Wembley. We ended up falling short against Luton. And I think the big reason was, we ended up finishing 6th and we scraped in on the final day. We had to go on, a bit of a run to even get into that position. And by the end of that run of fixtures, the squad was just shot to pieces. I think we didn't have a single fit centre-back for that playoff semi against Luton, which a team like that with, Carlton, Morris and Adebayo up front at the time, that's not the situation you want to be in. So that for me is, a good reason to look at the period that we've had and think, look, let's nurse some players through, let's rotate, let's get a bit of rest in them and try and have everybody fit and fire and come Friday night. But obviously you look at the way that the form's gone and there's not really any way of spinning 5 losses in a row into any sort of positive as much as I might want to. So, I think I can certainly understand the logic, but I think the way that it's all ended up kind of transpiring, it does leave you worrying and it leaves you fearful going into these games because you can get over a run of middling form, I think, reasonably easily, especially if you welcome players back. But, the players are just not in the habit of picking up points. And obviously, yourselves, you've been on at least a decent run of form and getting in the playoffs on the final day like you did against Middlesbrough. It's funny how you and Middlesbrough seem to keep cropping up in playoff conversation. But yeah, the way that you've got in on the final day by winning the game against a playoff rival, I think that gives you such a boost of confidence that, we're certainly not going to have had that. But, it's easy to talk before the event. So we'll see the fruits of the labour in these 2 games. But yeah, it's one that does leave me with some concerns in the back of my mind.
Yeah, obviously, when you saw that we actually made 5th by beating Middlesbrough, what was your thinking at that time?
Yeah, not happy. I mean, I think I've got nothing against Coventry fans. Coventry is a club. I mean, if you ask me dad or his dad, they might have had some words about Jimmy Hill and a certain relegation, but that was a bit before my time. So nothing against you, but I think we haven't beaten you since 2007, which that's just a ridiculous record. I mean, I remember even in the League One wilderness years a few years ago, we scored 4 goals against you at home and still got beat 5-4. So if there's any team that I would back to have a bit of sort of black magic and just be able to beat us no matter what, it's Coventry. So yeah, when we were all kind of checking the scores in the Stadium of Light on the final day and desperately trying to work out what was going on, and yeah, seeing Coventry sneak into 5th, I wasn't best pleased.
Yeah, all the different permutations, because obviously we were looking at our phones to see about Bristol City if they were going to make it and stuff like that, because obviously you and Sheffield United had cemented them 2 spots anyway. It was the 2 that was up for grabs, but we knew that a win would see us through. So it was just the different permutations, so kind of below us really. Now, obviously, going into the squad, have you got a relatively fit squad? Is there anybody out or just on their way back that we should be looking out for?
Yeah, so for once, and it's pretty rare to say this as a Sunderland fan, we've got nearly a full complement of players available going in, which, is a nice position to be in. But there's still a couple of players who are not quite there yet. And the big one of those is Romain Mundle, who, when he's fit, would 100% be starting every game for us on the left wing. And particularly at the start of the season, he was on quite a good run of form. I think he's only ended up getting 5 goals this season, but he's missed minimum 20 league games. I don't know the exact number, but he's missed a long spell. And the talk in the build up to the QPR game had been, might he be fit enough to play a part from the bench in that fixture? They ended up, being a bit cautious and leaving him out. And Régis Lebris today in his press conference has come out and confirmed that Mundle's out of the first leg completely and maybe back for the second. So, we'll wait and see with that. The other name mentioned was Haji Wright, who hasn't played in a good while again through injury, picked up a bit of a nasty injury against Stoke in the FA Cup. But yeah, they're kind of the only 2 names. Aside from those, we should have pretty much everybody available, which, it's a nice position to be in. But yeah, Mundle just missing out is going to take a little bit of the wind out of the sails, I think, for the first leg. Because, certainly I was looking forward to welcoming him back. And, I'm sure most Sunderland fans would be feeling the same, because I think there's kind of a general recognition that despite some of the names we've got in the squad, on his day, I think he's up there as one of, if not our best player.
Yeah, obviously, you mentioned there about the record, about not beating us in so long. Records are meant to be broken. We've broken a couple under Lampard. You know, we couldn't beat Preston, but we beat Preston under Lampard. Couldn't beat Swansea in Wales, and we beat them in Wales. Do you look at sort of the history, and do you think that there's something there that just can't be broken, or
well,
are
I
you
mean,
a very firm believer?
Look, like you say, records are made to be broken, aren't they? There's no streak of anything that goes on forever. But having said that, I think because it stretches back such a long way, and in fact, I think one of the first games I really properly remember like sitting down and watching and taking it all in was losing against Coventry in the Championship in about 2006. I was like really taken, fully like invested, and so all the way back then. I mean, when it goes as far back as that, it stops mattering who's involved in the games. You know what I mean? If it's a short-term thing, you can look at particular managers or players and stuff like that. But for it to last over 18 years, I think it has to play on the minds of everybody involved, I think, from a Sunderland point of view. Even if it's just wanting to get the monkey off the back, and then, even if they're not fearful or nervous, I think there's going to be at least an element of that. And look, I'm sure that, if you asked our manager, he'll talk it down. And I'm sure if you asked our players, they'd talk it down. But I think, if you could get into the privacy of their thoughts, there'll be something in there. I think I heard you mentioning just before I came on about Luke O'Nien. I think, was it 13 games or something he's played against Coventry and never won. So, he's a perfect example. I'm sure there'll be part of him that either wants to just put it right, or maybe that little, nagging doubt in the back of your mind of, oh God, it's Coventry. We never beat them. Is this going to be game 14? And so I think it'll matter in that sense. But at the same time, I'd be more worried thinking just back to the last time that we played you. The 3-0 at the CBS under Lampard. I thought that was an abject performance from us in the sense that I didn't really see us offer anything. It wasn't a hard fought 3-0 where you have had to overcome a tough side. It felt very pedestrian. So it's not great to have the long term form and the most recent fixture going against us. But it's a really long, rambly way of saying, I do think it'll play a part. But I'm hoping that we can put it right. But it's not great.
Okay, Graham on Facebook has put a comment in, and he said, "Jonny, if you lose, will you have to look for a new manager?"
Good question. If it was up to me, the answer would be no, because I think to qualify for the playoffs in fourth. Yes, look, the end of the season was poor, but to be in that position so comfortably with so long to go, I think shows you that he has done a good job. And you think, we did finish 16th last season. So it's not like we've just cruised in off the back of an already good squad. Yes, we had a lot of the same players, but there was clearly something going badly wrong behind the scenes last season. So for me, the manager's done a really good job, and I'd like to see him continue regardless. But we have quite an emotional fan base at times, I think might be a polite way of putting it.
We all do, mate. We all do.
Yeah, and there are still, I think, a number of fans who think that we still are a Premier League club, even though we haven't been one for a few years now. So there's always that impatient element who want to see results today, and. You can have a good first half of the season and a bad second half of the season. All of a sudden, it counts against you, and you can be out the door. So I could see it going either way, to be honest. I think if you were objective about it, I think we'd be keeping him. But I can easily see, a situation where even if he starts the next season, he might only get 5, 6, 7 games if things don't start well. So, I think jury's out. I don't think it should be, but the jury is out, I think.
Yeah. Okay. Mark, any questions for Jonny?
So, obviously, you've seen that your rivals up the road win the League Cup this season. Does that almost put extra pressure on Sunderland to get the promotion season, bearing in mind of what happened with Newcastle? And, does that, from a Sunderland's perspective, because obviously you don't really claim the champion, do you? But that kind of gives you that extra incentive, doesn't it, potentially?
Yeah, no, I mean, so thanks for mentioning Newcastle winning the trophy. Yeah.
I thought Robbie did it, so yeah.
Yeah, look, again, if you ask any of the manager or the players, I don't think they would, that would enter into their thinking. But certainly from a fan's point of view, I do think it matters because not only do you want to be in the same division as your rivals anyway, because you want to be playing them and you want to have those derby games and those atmospheres. I do think it's important because obviously they're now reaching such heights and with alarming regularity in terms of qualifying for Champions Leagues and getting the cup finals and stuff that, it's not nice as a Sunderland fan to look over and see that happening. So I think something that would go a long way to easing the general kind of mood of the fan base in that regard would be, like you say, to be in the same division and at least to be able to compete against them on something resembling an even playing field. Because I mean, we played them in the FA Cup a couple of last season, and we got beat 3-0. But it was a good atmosphere, but it was a bad game because you're just like, look, this is a team who's playing Champions League football, playing a team marooned in the Championship, so it's just not the same. Whereas, yeah, I do think it's, again, not important in like a short-term sense, but I think it's a big thing for the fan base as a whole to have Premier League football to kind of show for our efforts as a club over the past few years, and to have something to be able to then, stand on a level playing field with that lot up the road. As much as I'm not sure we'll be challenging the winners' circle of any of the major trophies in the next 2 seasons or so, but it'd be nice to dream.
I was going to ask one more question about, out of 46 games this season, which players have stood out for Sunderland?
Yes, look, we've been a bit of a funny team in the sense that we've had a good handful of players who've all looked really good, but in different runs of form at different times in the season. So, I mentioned Mundell already, who at the start of the season, was excellent. We sold Jack Clark to Ipswich. Mundell just came straight in and hit the ground running immediately. He was scoring goals, winning games, looked excellent. Joe Bellingham for a period of the season, particularly kind of just before and up to Christmas turn of the year. He was running games. He scored a fantastic goal against Derby at the stadium, from outside the area, which was like a nice little cherry on the icing for that run of form. So he's been great. Wilson Isidore went through a real purple patch, kind of February-ish time, more or less culminating in his, he scored when we played Middlesbrough at the Riverside and sort of put his Sunderland top on the corner flag and was parading it round, in front of the Middlesbrough fans. So yeah, I think Job, I think Mundell, I think Isidore, and then the one who recently has been impressive, Eliza Mayenda, particularly towards the end of the season. That goal that he scored at Ashton Gate against Bristol City a few weeks ago was excellent. Ran from near enough the edge of the D on his own box, which was impressive for anybody, never mind a 19-year-old kid. So yeah, I think, like I said, Joe Bellingham and Mundell would be in terms of quality of player, would be the ones that would stick up there. But Isidore's run of form is nothing to be sniffed at, and if we can get him firing again, he's a really potent weapon. So certainly one for your lads at the back to keep an eye on Friday night. Yeah,
who do you see to be obviously Haji Wright got the hat-trick against you at our place. Who do you see as the threats apart from Haji Wright?
Well, it's tough to look past Jack Rodoni. He is some player. I remember we were linked with him a few years ago before he left League One. And, we were a bit disappointed not to sign him, but nobody was thinking, oh, man, I can't believe we've missed out on this unbelievable talent. But looking at him now, he just seems to have everything. He's creative, a threat, goal scoring wise, can take set pieces, big lad, good in the air. He to me is a real danger man. And if you can get him on the ball and if you can get him, really involved in the game, then I'll be very worried. And the other one is, just because he used to play for Sunderland, Ellis Sims terrifies me. I know that he's maybe not been having the best of seasons at Coventry, but after seeing it happen time and time again over the years, I hate seeing ex-Sunderland lads line up against us because it's written in the stars that he's going to score.
Yeah, it is, definitely. Mark, obviously, we've mentioned Jack Rodoni before Jonny joined us, but he has got everything, because I think when he first joined, opinions were definitely split with Jack Rodoni because he went down with Huddersfield, a team that got relegated. And yes, he was probably the best player in that side, but nobody was expecting what to get from Jack Rodoni. He showed glimpses, but do you think he's got better with the tutelage of Lampard being there as well? Do you think that's a factor?
Absolutely, yeah. I think he has improved immeasurably, I think, this season. But I always think he's a talented player. I mean, this is a guy who started at AFC Wimbledon. He did really well at AFC Wimbledon. And Huddersfield signed him. And I thought, for the times he played against us for Huddersfield, I thought he was one of their better players. So when we found out in the summer that we signed him, I was quite happy about signing. I saw him in pre-season friendly. You can see the guy's got talent. His set piece is really good. He's got a bit of confidence, a bit of swagger about him. And I think Lampard really likes him because I think Lampard almost like him. He's like a Lampard type player. The way he scores goals from deep positions, and he's a Lampard-esque type player. And he's got a lot of qualities, and hopefully we'll see the best of the next 2 games because he's been head and shoulder our best player this season. He's been absolutely superb. For me, he's probably been one of our best signings, I'd say, for a longer time. I mean, for £5 million, it could be worth £20 million in the future. So I don't want to sell him, but that's the market. He's been excellent this season. He's been at the forefront, really good about our performances.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. I don't want to sell him either, but I think he is definitely the next sort of, 15 to 20 million pound player that can help us, progress. Hopefully we go up and we can keep him. But, he is definitely the next one that if we do let go, he'll be going for big money. Jonny, back to you. How do you see these? Obviously, because we've got such a short turnaround in games, obviously, we're only having this one playoff preview. How do you see the 2 games going? How would Sunderland fans like to see it go? And don't say 3-0 both legs. And how do you think it's going to go?
Well, so how I'd like it to go would be a stress-free first evening, as in we don't go behind, we don't come under sustained period of pressure, even if we don't win the game, even if we come away with a draw, and then take it back to the Stadium of Light and then hope that we can, do the job at home in the second leg. Because, look, if you can't back your team to win the home leg in the playoffs, then you're struggling, aren't you? If you don't feel at least partly confident. How I think it's going to go is a much more difficult question. I do think it's going to be a cagey first leg, at least for large parts of it. I'm hoping that Coventry don't build up a head of steam and really get on top of us, which obviously could happen. As I say, you guys having a bit of momentum coming in off the back of a good result against Borough and decent run of form generally, particularly at home under Lampard. So, I'd be worried in case you were able to set the tempo too much early on. But I think if we can keep it tight for the first sort of 15, 20 minutes and then start and grow into the game on Friday, then I think that we put ourselves in a much better position, because I expect Coventry to make most of the running in terms of possession and, attacking intent in the first leg, as you would expect from the home side, which I think, provided that we don't get overwhelmed, I think we can deal with. And I think, in a sense, could almost play into our strengths, because I think, we've got such pace on the break and we've got a great ability to utilise that. We've scored some excellent counter-attacking goals this season, that if we can keep it to that sort of game, that's how I can see a route through for Sunderland. And then, like I say, obviously try and take it back. We'd love to win both games, but even taking something, reasonably close, even if we were to be 1 goal down, I think we'd have it in us to turn that round in the second leg. I think if it goes anything more than a goal in Coventry's favour, I think that's when I start, and I'm one of the most optimistic Sunderland fans you'll probably ever meet generally as well. I'm much more of a happy clapper than I am a kind of doom merchant. But I think if it goes 2-0 or beyond, or 2 goals in terms of the aggregate or beyond, that's when I think things start getting very difficult, particularly because, as I say, our form's not been great. If we come into the home leg off the back of a poor result in the first leg, yeah, we'll have a big crowd, but it'll be a very big, edgy, tense, nervous crowd. And, you know, if we then don't give them something to latch onto in the first 5 or 10 minutes of that second leg, it could get ugly. You know, it's been known to happen at the Stadium of Light, unfortunately, from time to time. So, yeah, I think we definitely need to try and keep it tight. And from a Coventry point of view, it sounds self-explanatory, but you need to attack early, because if you can unsettle us and get us under pressure early doors, then I think that's when you're gonna have the most joy.
Yeah, I've kind of said that, to be fair. I've said, one, if we score early, then your fans are really going to start, you know, you're going to feel that tension with your fans. And I still think that we're going to need at least a 2-goal deficit in our favour when we go to your place. Because I do think that you'll score at your place. I think being at our place first definitely holds a slight advantage for us. You know, if we can win 2-0, 3-1, something like that, then I think we stand a good stead, because we can kind of let you win, if you like, 1-0 at your place and we still go through. So that's kind of my thinking. So I'm on the same lines as you, really. But I think that the fact that we're home first and our home form is quite good, then, you know, I would expect us to do something. But Mark, we've been there before 2 years ago when we weren't favourites against Middlesbrough. We held them to a 0-0 draw at our place. We went to their place and we won 1-0, didn't we? So we know we can do it, can't we?
Yeah, I think the important thing is not to lose this game.
Mark, sorry, mate. Can I just stop you? We have had a comment about your speaker. Is there anything that you can do?
Is it my headset?
Is it your headset?
I can turn it off if you want. That's it.
See if that's better.
Can you hear me?
Yes, that's better, mate.
Yeah, sorry about that.
That's all right.
Yeah, I think for me, it's a case of do not lose this game, and I think that's probably the same from a Sunderland perspective. I think we're good enough to win 2-0. But, you know, looking back on the Sunderland game, I think it's important not to lose the game from our point of view, because even at worst case a draw, Sunderland they'll expect to win. And I think, you know, going to that second leg, if we can get a win would be fantastic, and I think we're good enough to. But if at worst case we get a draw, I still think the pressure's on Sunderland. You know, the home fans will expect them to win at home. So I think it'd be a case the second leg of just keeping them quiet, really, and nick a goal like against Middlesbrough. So I'm very relaxed about the fact we're playing away second leg. It does put a little bit more pressure on us in the home leg. We really need to get a positive result. I think we're good enough to get a positive result, but I think Sunderland won't make it easy for us. I think you know, they can't be as bad as they were in that game in March. They were very poor, and you know, I mean, it'd be great if they were as bad as that, but realistically, I don't think that's going to happen. I think there'll be a much tougher proposition, and it's effectively a cup match. I think you know that what's happened before goes out the window now, and it's about how well we prepare for the game. But I think we're good enough to beat them over 2 games. I'm really confident in the way we're playing at the moment. As I said earlier at the start, there's a real good feel-good factor about the club, and we want that to continue. And I think we're good enough. But if we do get a draw, I don't think panic stations as such. I still think the pressure on Sunderland to win. Their fans will be very expectant. You know, 40,000 fans at Stadium of Light. But you know, we went there in the season. We got a draw there, and I think we're good enough to go there and get a result. Because if you can nick that goal against them, I think their fans can tell on their players quite easily. So you know, that's something you have to factor in as well.
Yeah, definitely. For those that have just joined us, Jonny, Matt Bradley on Facebook has said, what's going on with Sunderland recently? Are they lax knowing that they're in the playoffs or not playing well? First of all, Matt, where have you been? We've already done this, but thank you very much for the question. Jonny, if you can just let us know about that for those that are just joining us.
Yeah, so definitely a case of changing the squad, changing the team. lots of substitutions in games as well in the second half recently, clearly with a view on, keeping players fresh and fit and avoiding injuries, bringing players back where we can. And largely successful as well. We have brought most of the players back, even if they've only just in recent weeks actually made their first sub appearances in a while or what have you. It's been positive. But then the upshot of that has been the results. Now, that doesn't explain every game, but I certainly think it explains the general trend. We've not been just naming our strongest 11 every week. We have had some the game against Bristol City, we were down to 10 men from 5 minutes in. So, you can almost write that off. We've had some stinking performances. I think Oxford United away in particular, we named it a strong team and we went out and just didn't turn up. So mostly, like I say, the team selections and the rotation, but most definitely a little bit of column A and a little bit of column B in terms of that, and just general bad performances and a poor run of form, which, you can half excuse when you're in a good position as we were in the league. But obviously now that we're about to hit crunch time, this is when, those chickens could come home to roost if we're not careful.
Yeah, definitely. Matt Bradley said, sorry, late to the party. It's fine. I was only joking, mate. So we have had a comment on X from Buzz8. And I've been very critical of officials. And I don't think that they've been very good. He said, what about the official? They can have a big influence on the match. What's your take, Jonny, on the officials? Are you happy with the standard of officiating? Or are you like me and absolutely think it's absolute dog?
I'm most definitely like you, Stuart. I think it has been horrendous, the quality of officiating this season. I mean, Sunderland alone have had, I can think off the top of my head of 5 or 6 decisions, big decisions that either went for or against us and were just blatantly wrong. It's not even like woe is us, so much bias. There's been things that we've had going our favour where you look at it and you just think, how have you made that decision? It's inexplicable. And there was, across the league as well, you see the clips on social media and stuff fly around every weekend after the games, and some of the decisions are just laughable. So unfortunately, it is something that you've got to take into account, isn't it, going into the game where they could potentially have a massive impact for either side or both. I mean, they're incompetent enough to give multiple stinkers in the same game. Look, I feel for them to some degree because it is an impossible job, but also like the mistakes have been so bad. It does get to the point where it feels inexcusable. So, obviously the players can't go out with anything in their minds to try and combat that because the referees are the referees and they're, beholden to themselves and their own, their own official boards and their assessors and what have you. So the players can't influence it. But, I'd maybe be having a word in the ears and just saying like, look, don't give them a decision to make. If you can at all help it, just do everything you can not to have that referee's eyes on you, because as soon as the ref's eyes are on you, you're in trouble at this level.
Yeah, totally agree. Simon, this one's for you, Mark. Simon as well said on Facebook, do you think they'll offer Jamie Allen a new contract as well as Sheaf?
I would say no to that question. I think he's been a good servant for us, but I just feel that he has been a good servant for us. He hasn't let the side down. He's been a really good player for us over the years. But I just think if we want to progress the football club, I think we'll be looking for some bit more quality maybe. But that's not of any detriment to Jamie Allen. I think he's been a great servant for the football club. He hasn't let the side down. But I just want a bit more quality in that midfield. That would be my view.
What about Sheaf?
I think. If we got an offer, if he's got a year to run, hasn't he? So I think I'd be tempted to cash in on him personally, which might be a bit controversial because his injury record's really poor. I think that's the thing I worry about Ben Sheaf. I don't think he's had one of his better seasons this year. He's been a bit disappointing for me, but. Yeah, I just feel that he's had a lot of injuries and I'm just a bit worried about his the fact that he might break down again next season, another injury. So that'd be my big concern about him. I think if we get an offer from him, I'll be tempted to cash in. That's my opinion.
Okay, fair enough. Paul Stratton on YouTube has said, I think we come out from the off, blitz Sunderland, get the job done first leg. Don't believe Sunderland can just turn on form at will. Rodoni will destroy them. So hopefully that's true. So, Jonny, just to briefly chat about the other semi-final, which is Bristol City at home, first leg against Sheffield United. How do you think that's going to go, and who would you like to see go through?
Well, selfishly, I'd like to see Bristol City go through because, no disrespect to them, but I think we're all in the same boat, aren't we? I think they're just not close to the level of Sheffield United as a side, and nobody should expect them to be because Sheffield United were in the Premier League this time last year, so fair enough. But definitely Bristol City had want. I think that's going to be a pretty ugly game of football as well, if I'm being honest, the first leg, because I think Bristol City are going to need to try and make every advantage count if they've got a hope of getting something out of these two legs against Sheffield United. So I think they're going to be, obviously the fans are going to try and make it an intimidating atmosphere, but I'd imagine they're going to be very full-blooded, very committed in the challenge, quite agricultural, you might say, and so I expect them to be less likely to come out playing like Pep Guardiola's Barcelona and more likely to come out playing like a sort of Jose Mourinho late stage Chelsea team, I think, with maybe more of a view on hurting the opposition than helping themselves. I don't mean physically, but in terms of getting stuck in and doing all of the the nitty gritty stuff. So I expect that to be tight because I think for Bristol City, similar to us really, they cannot be more than a goal down going into the second leg. And to be honest, they maybe can't afford to even be a goal down. So I think they've got to do everything they can to limit the amount of actual football that gets played, keep the stoppages high, and then, try and utilise set pieces and stuff from their point of view to try and nick a goal or two. So I expect it to be a real battle. But I do think if you're a betting man, you're putting your money on Sheffield United, aren't you?
I think you are. I think you're right. But Bristol City have beat Sheffield United this season.
Yes.
So
very true.
It's not going to be as easy, I don't think, for Sheffield United as some people may think. What's your thoughts on that, Mark?
I think the key player is our ex-player, Mr. Hamer. I think he's been outstanding for Sheffield United, and he makes them tick. I think, in all honesty, Sheffield United are favourites to win over the two legs. I know what you're saying, but then Sheffield United won 2-1, I think, at Bristol City. So I think we'd all want, as Jonny rightly said, I think we all want Bristol City. But what I would say is, whoever's the winners of our game, if you do get Sheffield United, it's a one-off game at Wembley, for the winners, and anything can happen at Wembley. It's not certain that Sheffield United are going to get promoted. Any team can have an off day. It's how you handle the occasion as well. So, I don't think. Obviously, we don't. It's not really a time to look too far ahead of that. But I would say Sheffield United are, for me, the favourites. I think if they get at least a draw at Ashton Gate, I'd back them really to win quite comfortably at Bramall Lane.
Okay, fair enough. Matt's also, I think I know the answer to this one as well, Jonny, to be fair, but Matt's also said, who would Jonny rather have had, Cov or Bristol?
Bristol City all day long. Not just for the myriad of reasons that I didn't want Coventry, but also just, again, I don't want to sound too disrespectful to Bristol City again, but we played them recently, and like I say, we were down to 10 men basically 5 minutes into the game. Another horrendous decision from the official as well. Should never have been a red. But even with that being down to 10 men for so long, it took a 35-yard wonder goal from their centre half, and then another goal much later in the game for them to actually secure the points. I think if we'd had 11 men for that game, I think we certainly wouldn't have lost, and I expect we would have beaten them. Now, look, they're still obviously a decent side because they've finished in the top 6, so they've clearly got something about them, and they're not going to be a pushovers for Sheffield United, or for, should they get through, whoever wins out of the two of us. But I think I would have been very confident going into 2 legs against Bristol City. Questionably not confident at all, bordering on depressed going into 2 legs against Coventry. So if that answers that question, I think, yeah, definitely Bristol City.
I think it does. Thank you very much. Paul on YouTube has also said, Jonny, can you tell me when Job actually turned up and won a game for you?
Do you know what? I got asked this question the other day as well. It's been a little while. It has been a little while.
Okay.
In his defence, he spent a few games with a slight injury recently, so he's been slightly in and out of the team. But it has been a bit of time. So he is, on the one hand, you could say he's due a performance. On the other hand, you could say he kind of owes us a performance.
Yeah.
Depending on which way you look at it. But
Okay.
I think back to that early part of the season in particular again, and I think I mentioned his goal against Derby, which was excellent. But there was a period where we were top of the league for a while and then slightly dropped off, but still very much in touch with the autos. And then Job got a red card, so he missed half of that game, and then the following 3. We lost all 4 of those games, I think, or we maybe drew one of them, which I think, and we haven't actually won a game without him playing this season, which, he's not the kind of player who's necessarily yet ready to be taking games by the scruff of the neck in the way that, like a young Wayne Rooney or somebody would have done. You think about the game against Arsenal all those years ago. He's maybe not that guy just yet, but he is a massively important part of this team. So, if you shut him down, you go somewhere towards keeping us quiet.
Okay. Now, because you've mentioned, well, not you've mentioned Joe Bellingham, but because Paul's mentioned him, I am going to ask you about the team of the season. Now, I didn't agree with probably about 70% of that team, I don't think. Now, obviously, you mentioned about Joe being there, and about the first half of the season. For me, I think that they do it far too early, the team of the season. And it should be done, after the final game, because you have people like Jack Rodoni that has been good all season, but they have got better as the season's progressed. And I think they get missed out a lot. What are your feelings on that?
I fully agree. I think it's ridiculous that we're picking a team of the season for a competition which technically hasn't finished yet.
Yeah.
As much as the playoffs aren't part of the regular season, I don't see why you shouldn't count them because they're part of the championship. So I totally agree on that score. And I also disagreed with a fair amount of that team of the season. And if I'm being honest, now look, Joe plays for my club. I love him. He's great. He wouldn't have been my first pick from Sunderland to nominate for the team of the season. I'd have been nominating Trey Hume ahead of him at right back, maybe, as one of our better consistent performers this season. There's other names you'd maybe want to throw in, but I also think we probably couldn't complain if we had nobody in it. So, yeah, I totally agree about Rodoni as well. I think it's extremely harsh on a player like him. And the way that the Manager of the Season award goes as well. I mean, the whole thing to me is just... it's like, has Scott Parker done a better job than some of the managers in this league by taking... It's ridiculous, isn't it? It's the same in the Premier League as well. It's always whoever wins that league gets the Manager of the Season. Same everywhere. Well, and I think it's a joke.
The thing that annoys me about Scott Parker is he's done what he was supposed to do and he finished second. Didn't even win the league. Regardless of whether you're level on points or not, didn't even win the league, did what he's meant to do. Now, for me, you give Scott Parker a Stoke, a Millwall. He's not doing. I know he's not doing it. I don't rate him as a coach. It is all. If you look at the teams that he's previously managed, Bournemouth were meant to go up. Fulham were meant to go up. Burnley were meant to go up.
Yep.
For me, look, it's no disrespect. I suppose there is a little bit disrespect, but he's been given jobs that he's expecting to get them up. And he does, I'm sure he does a solid job, behind the scenes and getting them set up. And, the part of the team of the season that I don't disagree with is Trafford and the 2 centre-halves for keeping that many clean sheets. It's phenomenal. They've done a phenomenal job at the back. And maybe that is down to Scott Parker a little bit. But he still hasn't done anything that warrants being manager of the season. Lampard came in when we were 17th and he's got us to the playoffs. If we win the playoffs and go to the Premier League, where's the chat about Lampard?
Exactly. Well, I said a similar thing about Tony Mowbray 2 seasons ago when he led us into the playoffs.
Yeah,
you know, a
completely.
newly promoted League One side who lost their manager a handful of games into the season, and Mowbray comes in and takes us to 6th. Not even really mentioned. Even, and the point you make about Lampard, even you think about Liam Manning at Bristol City this season.
Well,
how is he not winning it?
Derby.
Well, Eustace could have won manager of the season twice this year. 2 different jobs that he's done. The whole thing is it's half popularity contest and half just ticking boxes, isn't it? Oh, he won the league or he got them up. We'll give him manager of the season. People like him. He's going in the team of the season. And I'll be honest, that's partly why Job's in there, really, isn't he? He's partly in there because
he is. I think so.
His surname, and look, it opens a lot of doors for him and it brings him a lot of good things. But you've got to accept sometimes that actually it's a bit of a negative in the sense that he's getting the attention when maybe it's not always fully merited. But as I say, having said all that, I do think, he's been superb this season. I don't begrudge him it, but I also do think when you've got Jack Rodoni sat there on the numbers he's on, it's tough for me to turn around and put a serious case forward for Job over him.
Again, I could the superlatives that I could do for Jack Rodoni is I think he's just in double figures or just outside double figures for both assists and goals. So for somebody to do that or be that close, I think he should have been in the reckoning. Like I mentioned already, I think it's done far too early. I think it should be done after the playoff final. Because as we've mentioned, we know it's not officially, the league, but it's part of the same season, isn't it? So. But anyway, that's my rant. That's my rant about that over and done with. So we've been going an hour and a quarter. Thank you very much, both. If there's any final questions that you want to come in, please send them in while we're just finishing off talking. We'll go for about another 5 minutes if that's okay with you two. Matt has said, thinking ahead and the dream happens, both squads, are they fit for the Prem with what has happened to the teams being promoted in the last 2 seasons? And where would you need to recruit? So I'll go to you first, Jonny, on that one, because I think that's a really good question. Well,
when you look at the fact that we could have a Europa League final which features 15th and 16th in the Premier League, you do start to question whether any of us down here have got a hope of going up there and competing. It is getting harder. It is. I mean, just look at the last 2 seasons: 3 up, 3 down. And it's less a case of how good are the teams coming up. It's starting to become more a question of who could you possibly see any of us replacing? Because obviously for one of us to stay up, one of them lot have got to come down. And the worst teams in the Premier League now outside the relegation zone are probably Wolves and West Ham. I mean, Wolves and West Ham would probably win every single game and break every record if they were in the Championship this season. And that's not because any of us are awful teams. It's just, I think that gap's massive. Having said that, I think possibly naively, but out of the playoff chase, playoff lot now, I do think we've got the best setup to have a chance of staying up, in the sense that we've already got high value young players in the building who, if we need money, we can sell on. If we don't need to sell them on, we can keep them and they can improve with us. I think Job will be off either way, but we've got Chris Rigg, players like Mayenda, Trey Hume, the list goes on. We've got good players who will fetch a lot of money. We've got an excellent academy which has produced some brilliant prospects. We've got, a great stadium, training facilities, yada yada, all the rest of it. So we've kind of got everything except a Premier League team. So in that sense, I think we'd maybe have the best chance. But even then, I wouldn't give us much hope of going up. Going up and staying up. I think in terms of where we need to strengthen if we did go, I think we need a goalkeeper. Anthony Patterson's got way too many mistakes in him.
Okay.
He's a local lad and he's done really
That's interesting
well for
because
us.
I quite like Patterson, to be fair. I think he's quite good.
On his good days, he's really, really good, and he tends to be pretty consistent. The trouble is, when his bad days come, they are bad.
Okay.
And, you know, he went through a patch this season where he went 3 games like in a row, giving away a goal completely his fault every game, and it costing us points, which doesn't fill you with confidence. So, you know, I think I'd want another goalkeeper if we went up. I'd probably want another option up front because I think as good as I think Isidore and Mayenda are, Isidore has only got 12 goals this season and Mayenda is 19. You know, that's not a Premier League strike force at this moment. And beyond that, it would be more a case of making sure we replace anyone we sell. Because the downside of having a vibrant, young, exciting squad is everybody else starts looking at that squad and going, "Oh, I quite like him," or "I quite like him," or "I quite like him." So yeah, I think for us, like I said, slim to no chance of staying up, but to have even half a sniff, we'd need a keeper, a centre forward, and then question mark others depending on who leaves.
Yeah, Mark, question over to you. Now, before I get your answer, now I know that there've been cup games and I know they're one-off games and it's completely different doing it over a 38-game season. But we ran Tottenham close in the cup this year. We've beaten Wolves in the cup and we've also, for me, we beat Man United in the cup as well. Now, as Jonny just alluded to with his players, we've got Haji Wright. We've got Ellis Sims that scored a goal in the Premier League as well. We've got Milan, who's probably ready for the Premier League. We've got Grimes, Sheaf's ready for the Premier League. We've got Jack Rodoni that's ready for the Premier League. Do you think on that basis that we might be okay to stay up? Now, if Brentford, for instance, as Jonny alluded to, who do we replace? If Brentford lose Thomas Frank, Wissa and Bremo, they could be the ones to miss out and come down potentially because they are 3 key people in that Brentford lineup and manager. So how do you feel about that question?
I think we need a lot of strength, need a lot of players realistically if we were to get promoted. I think the goalkeeper situation needs to be looked at. I would say I don't think our 2 left backs are Premier League quality. Milan, you rightly say, is Premier League quality, but we need a backup player for him. I think defensively in the goalkeeper would be my biggest problem areas. I think midfield are okay, but I still think, as I said earlier with Ben Sheaf, his injury record was pretty poor. I think you know I'd be tempted to cash in on him. Jamie Allen is a workhorse, but realistically he wouldn't be Premier League quality. He's at best a Championship player. We need a lot of signings. I mean, you look at this season with Ipswich. They spent a lot of money on players, and they're still bottom. They're still third bottom of the league. So spending money and all that is great, but doesn't necessarily guarantee success. I think in recent years, obviously Forest have done really well this season, but in the first few seasons they spent an enormous amount of money just to stay in the league. They probably even broke financial rules, probably. So we still need a lot. We'd need a lot of signings. I mean, Ellis Sims, you mentioned, scored a goal, but is he really Premier League quality? I don't think he is. I think he's not. He's only scored 3 goals this season in the Championship, which has been disappointing. I still think we need a lot of signings realistically if we were to stay up. We're nowhere near good enough realistically to stay in this league with this squad in the Premier League. We'd get beaten most weeks. That's my personal opinion.
No, look, I do agree that I think if we went up, we would be coming straight back down, just like the 3 teams there. But obviously, the way that Jonny explained it as well, I think we're quite similar. I think that Sunderland have probably got a younger squad than us, and that's why I might maybe tip us to give it a better go, just because we've got a few older heads in there than Sunderland have. Paul, for you, Jonny has got a final question. He said, as you're quite a small team, are you worried about Coventry's height and physicality from set pieces? Because we have got okay. Obviously we've got a good reputation with scoring from corners and free kicks and stuff. So are you worried about that?
Yes, for 3 reasons. One, Luke O'Nine's almost guaranteed to start in centre back, and he's below 6 foot tall. So that's always a bit of a concern when you face a team who's great at set pieces. 2, the record that you've got that you've already mentioned. But 3 is the fact that I think all season, one of our big weaknesses that not too many people seem to have picked up on and talked about is like floated balls into the box have caused us big issues. I think of Plymouth at home not that long ago as the kind of poster child of this in my mind, where we ended up dropping points late on after, we'd been winning at home reasonably comfortably against Plymouth, which you'd expect. And then the last 10 minutes, it was like a switch flipped and we just were all at sea. And it just seemed to be every time they put a ball in the box, didn't need to be precise. It didn't need to be picking a man out, just putting it in an area and putting the onus on us to defend that ball. Okay. We just couldn't seem to cope, whether it was, defenders not really being positioned right, people not being reactive enough or quick enough to try and attack the ball. Just something about it seems to be really, really hurting us, whether it's communication, organisation, or just a bit of inexperience. Definitely something that we've struggled with. So if you are going to be looking to take advantage of that with set pieces, then that's something that does give me the fear going into the first leg.
Excellent. That's what I like to see. Getting excited now. Right. So on that note, thank you very much both. Don't shoot off when we finish recording, Jonny. We'll have a quick chat afterwards. Can you just let us know where we can find you again and what you guys do?
Yeah, so at Roker Report on Twitter, or X, or whatever we're calling it these days, to find all of the links and other content that Roker Report put out in kind of one easy place. The Howie, the podcast feed run by Roker Report, is on Spotify and Acast and everywhere that you can find podcasts. If you wanted to find me for some reason, my Twitter handle's in the description. And also rokerreport.sbnation.com for all Roker Report articles, features, news items, etc. All of the possible Sunderland content you could ever want to read, watch, or listen to.
Thank you very much. Obviously, you can see that I've been nice and I've put the Mackham cabbie on there saying good luck and may the best team win, and back to you. Thank you very much. Back on track saying evening cabbie, and he said hi back. So on that note, Mark, thank you very much for joining me on this live feed. Jonny, thank you very much for joining us for the live feed as well. Been much appreciated. And to all yous out there, just remember where you can find us. It is scrolling along the ticker at the bottom. We are available on X, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. Please go and like and subscribe. It is much appreciated. And we're also available on podcasts, Apple, Spotify, or wherever else that you get your podcasts from. We're sponsored by Wright Steel Fabrications. His logo's in the corner. And we're also partnered with the Antidote Sports Bar at the CBS Arena and here at the Tavern where I am live tonight. And we're also in association with Coventry Ladies Football Team. So once again, thank you, gents, for joining me. Very much appreciated. You can listen to this back when it goes available on podcasts as well. So please go and rate us 5 stars on there. So for the last time, obviously, I would normally as well, to be fair, Jonny, say good luck for the rest of the season. But I can't because it's over. And Gav did exactly the same to me when I was on yours. So I'm not wishing you good luck. And hopefully we don't see you next season because we'll be in the Prem. So on that note, thank you very much.